Hey, what's going on, everybody? Just a few of my final thoughts the day before the game. Certainly, it's an exciting time. Look, I feel like we've kind of discussed this so many times in terms of offense versus defense, vice versa, whoever has the ball, and kind of some keys to the game. But just a few more of my final thoughts on this one. It's something I haven't mentioned, but definitely keep an eye on Miami's penalties. Look, Miami's been one of the most penalized teams under Mario Cristobal in the 2 years, ranking 11th out of the 14 teams in the ACC. And sometimes people think, well, does it, actually matter? Can you still win games? Yes, you can. But when looking at that list, 4 of the top 5 teams that have been the most penalized teams in the ACC actually have losing records in the conference, whereas conversely, 4 of the 5 least penalized teams in the ACC have winning ACC records. So I do think that there's some correlation there. And I think in a big game like this, penalties and giving away free yards is certainly a key. So pay attention to that. I think having a more disciplined team, another thing to pay attention to, I'd like to see a little bit better approach to the sideline from the coaching staff. I think sometimes they get really worked up and really into the game. And I think just with a game like this, because there can be so many ups and downs, I think trying to have a little bit more even keeled on the sideline will be something that I'll be watching for as well. Again, these are just a few things I've been thinking about with this game. Another thing too, and I know in big games, both teams would say this, they definitely want to start fast. And yes, you don't want to get behind the 8 ball. You don't want to be down 14-0 out of the gate or anything like that. But I think in a game like this, those middle quarters are what are standing out to me. That second and third quarter, to really, get a few drives under your belt from that first quarter, whatever might happen with momentum, but really just understanding that the game is 4 quarters and there's a lot of drives in a game and you've got to put together a lot of positive drives. And so those middle quarters, in particular that third quarter, out of halftime, in particular with defensive coordinator Lance Guidry, he views the third quarter as such a pivotal quarter for a defense to be evaluated on. It's something that he really takes pride in. So look for the points per game all season long for Miami's defense, or points per quarter in that third quarter. How many points are they giving up? He's definitely going to be, making sure that they're on point with that. And I think that third quarter defense will be big, but also offense too, obviously. I just think those middle quarters are definitely something to pay attention to in a game like this. And I don't think that's what people are really always going to focus on, because again, everyone wants the fast start in a big game, especially a road team. And obviously you want to finish strong, but pay attention to those middle quarters in this one. Another thing that Coach Guidry has mentioned quite a bit in terms of last year's team, that there were a lot of moments throughout the season in games where he felt pretty good. He thought they played pretty good, in these games defensively. However, there was either one drive or one quarter where things really fell apart for them. And he's very cognizant of that. How do they get that fixed? It's hard, it's easier said than done. But to me, for the season, certainly that'll be something that they want to correct, but I think in this game in particular, that will be something to watch for. A big game on the road, rivalry game. If things aren't going their way defensively, how will they get it back? Or how do they not let the bottom just drop out defensively, where you have, for example, 2 bad drives in a row or giving up big plays, whatever that might be, kind of really staying in tune, really consistent on defense. And again, I know that's what all teams want. It's definitely difficult to do because you do give up big plays, you do give up some things, but if they can just kind of be steady and kind of really be consistent, kind of drive to drive, that'll be something that'll be a big key in this one for Miami. And when I mention big plays in a game like this, that's another thing I'm curious about as my final thoughts here is, who on either team is going to provide these speed burst type plays, offensively in particular? Who's going to make these big plays, really stretch the field, get a lot of extra yards, these yards after catch, the yards after contact. Who's going to show off their speed? Maybe it's in special teams. Both teams looking to try to make plays in special teams with some speed guys there. Maybe that's where they'll get the extra speed burst. Who's going to really shine? Maybe it's the quarterbacks, and Miami's defense has talked about Graham Mertz, that yes, he can run. I know Cam Ward, definitely is a guy that will scramble when needed. And I think that's something to watch for too, with, not just the big plays, but with Cam Ward and his rushing ability. His splits between wins and losses over his career at Washington State is pretty significant in terms of his rushing yards. So his numbers aren't gaudy by any means with his rushing totals, but I think in the losses he's at 15 total yards. So if he's getting sacked, which count towards obviously towards a quarterback's individual stat in college, so if he's getting sacked or not able to scramble, that might be something to really watch for, kind of one of these small sneaky things to watch for with Cam Ward, even though he's on a new team. But if he's able to get a few scrambles off, if he's able to avoid the sack, that'll certainly bode well for Miami. And I think Cam Ward as well, once he's in this game setting, if the offensive line is really doing a good job blocking him. And I think if we're talking about some question marks that I have with this team, it is on the offensive line. I think both two new starters, center Zach Carpenter, and then left guard, it looks like they're going to go with Matt McCoy, but certainly Sampson could get in there as well. Those are question marks to me. I want to see these guys play well before I really believe that they are going to be this formidable 5-man unit. So in a game like this, they've got to play well, especially I'm looking at Zach Carpenter with the responsibilities that he has at center. It's certainly big for Miami to play well, to have these two guys step up, because I don't think three guys can really just offset if two guys are kind of a little bit off. And you definitely got to like the personnel at wide receiver and quarterback and Cam Ward, and you like what you have at running back too. I think that this team will throw the ball. I'm very curious to see how the dynamic works in this game in terms of their offensive identity, which I've talked about quite a bit, so I won't get into that. Then defensively, question marks I have. The major one I have is the secondary. And it's not just at the safety position, but the corners as well. How will they be able to defend? And this is going to be, for me, at least a question mark all season long, but it gets started in this one against Florida. They do have playmakers that can make plays and can expose you, so we'll see how the secondary does in this game. And then, maybe they can get it offset, which we've talked about so much too. If the defensive line can really step up its game and have one of these A-level type games, it can kind of offset and kind of take the pressure off the secondary, because you're putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback and the passing game. But we'll see. Florida wants to get the ball out quick and have an efficient offense. But those are just a few of my final thoughts. Again, I've talked so much about this game. We've talked about it all off season, and certainly this week leading up to it. But definitely, if you have some final thoughts, or maybe some things that, some sneaky things that aren't being talked about that you think can work positively or negatively for Miami in this game, definitely drop in the comments below, and we'll check these comments and see how the game plays out. Nobody knows what's going to happen in games. That's what makes sports so fun. So we'll see if Miami can pull off this upset. But I have some more work to do leading up to the game, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'll be at the stadium as early as possible to get settled in, 3:30 start. So I want to thank everybody for watching videos throughout the week, content leading up to this big game. It's a lot of fun. So it's a lot of fun when Miami's in these big time games. So thanks for your support. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the game however you're enjoying it, either at the stadium or at home, friends and family, however it might be. So thanks again. Have a good rest of the day and take care.